Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Stephanie Charrington. I am the Executive Director of the backbone of the Eastside Pathways Partnership. If you're new, thanks to those who are already putting in your name and the organization, community, or network that you're affiliated with and your contact information. For those not familiar, Eastside Pathways is first and foremost a partnership of different stakeholders in the community, public, private, nonprofit. The backbone's role is specifically to convene and facilitate you as stakeholders in the community. We also knit together data and communication to help build public will and move our work forward. So we are part of a system. Our work is specifically designed to change systems. We're the system. So the work here is how we are changing and improving how we work together. We're measuring that work. We're being very specific about that work so that our lagging outcomes are better outcomes for children, youth, and families. We can't skip over this work together and hope to get to outcomes for kids. Otherwise, we end up getting to Band-Aids. So this is our specific work here. I want to introduce the team. I will also say, normally we have Kalika Curry, who's one of our community impact managers, and unfortunately she had an incident happen right as we were planning doing our last prep for this call, so she is not able to be here today. But our other community impact manager, Sandy Nathan, give us a wave, Sandy, will be facilitating. We also have here with us today is Peyton Richardson, our data officer, and our business and operations manager running things behind the scene is Vicki Yu. So just so you guys know, one of the things, I just wanted to give a little bit of background also on the work that we do as a backbone here in terms of convening and facilitating. You guys are all working hard in that direct service. In planning here, planning and designing these meetings, it takes us anywhere between 6 to 10 hours for every one of these hour-and-a-half calls that we spend together as a team. We're very, very focused on looking at the design and making sure that we can get to outcomes and help you get to outcomes that you need. So I just wanted to offer that in that you guys are doing a huge amount of work in direct service, and I wanted to note that as part of our responsibility in this common work that we're doing together, that's a little bit of an insight into what we do in designing these meetings. Okay, moving forward really quickly, I think you guys have seen this before. Peyton, if you don't mind changing. Thank you. The logistics. In the past 6 meetings or so, we have not recorded these meetings because we've done fish bowls. We are going to start recording again. For those who are new, we did fish bowls, and just to respect people's privacy, we didn't want to record those and have those be shared broadly. But we're back into our regular source of work, so to speak. So we're going to be recording those. Folks have already started to add in their names. Take breaks if you need to. Service your own needs. And of course, remember to please have a pen and pad handy for specific notes for you. These notes and the PowerPoint and the recording will be shared by the end of today. Okay, moving on. As we traditionally do, we're going to kick this off with a gracious space question. There's a little bit of teaching here as well. Some of you who are familiar with adaptive leadership might be familiar with the productive zone of disequilibrium. As I talked about, we are focusing on how we're working together here. And the most productive zone for people to move work forward is when actually you're feeling heat, which means feeling uncomfortable in some way, form, or fashion. The technical challenges, which are those for which we have known solutions. what's a technical example? Really quickly, I need to send an email. I know how to use Outlook to send an email. That's a technical solution to a technical problem. When you're in that type of zone, there's not a lot of heat. You know the answer. You're not really pushing yourselves. And when there is heat, when there are new things that you're learning, when there are time pressures, for example, when you are with people that you're normally not with, or you may not know them very well, it adds heat to a certain situation. And it's in those zones where we are most productive, we're most attentive, we're most looking at opportunities for change. If we are comfortable, it means that it's stuff that we've already done and we're not going to be changing. And our whole work here is about how we're pushing each other to change. We don't want it so hot that you abandon. And so the question for you to think about in this gracious space and have a personal reflection, I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it, is how do you know when you're outside of your zone of disequilibrium? What's the feeling that you have? The feeling. It could be a physical feeling. So take a few seconds. Okay, so hopefully you jotted that down. It may have sparked for you some memories of feeling uncomfortable in certain situations. And I'm going to invite my teammate, any of my teammates, but Sandy in particular, if you want to add anything in personal reflections about your own zone of disequilibrium.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. For me, one such thing that's coming up that has caused discomfort, self-doubt, disengagement at some levels has been being in meetings and hearing the use of idioms and references that are very American. And so what it does to me is, while it might be second nature to folks that are in the room that identify as American, it doesn't necessarily have a relevance in my world where I come from. So the feeling is really self-doubt, like I don't belong. And the kind of self-doubt is, am I supposed to know this? Maybe I shouldn't show my discomfort because I might be perceived as, oh, doesn't she know even that? Should I just Google it later? So I've gone through all of those emotions, which kind of makes me disengaged because the work has moved on. Folks believe that they gave this, for example, a great reference to baseball, or maybe a holiday that's a very American holiday, which I don't get the nuances to. So I have not managed to connect it to the work that we were trying to move along. And so the consciousness really helps me be aware of what's happening so I can protect myself, but continue to stay in the productive state and not abandon the engagement in a way that I've learned to say, maybe, offer a technical solution, have people stop and ask folks to either give a working definition or another reference or kind of explain it to me. So today, really, Stephanie, I would like to offer to all of you that's reflecting on this question is really think about, how do you know in your body, mind, and heart when you're outside the zone? And how does that recognition help you protect yourself and stay in the productive space? Keep in mind that this was written, this model was created by a white male navigating white spaces and systems. So as you reflect on this question, I'd like to invite you to reflect on it from your racial identity and how this lands in you.
Thanks, Sandy. I think the other thing that I'll add here is the consciousness for you as individuals is really important. Mm-hmm. And as you think about taking this tool, potentially these learnings back into your own spheres of influence, your neighborhoods, your community groups, your organizations, what does that consciousness look like for others as well? So Sandy talked about, the idioms that we use as Americans, using analogies with baseball. Well, being conscious of who's in the room and understanding, oh, that may cause them to completely abandon, may completely disengage in this setting. So being really conscious of the stranger, who's in the room, and making sure that we're allowing people to stay in that zone of productive zone of disequilibrium without them disengaging, without them abandoning. So it's for yourself, and then also for others, that consciousness. So we're going to take the opportunity here and go into breakout groups, as we always do. Through the power of Zoom, you'll be transported into a breakout group of 3s, and you'll have the opportunity to discuss in your group, what do you do to stay in that productive zone, either adding more heat for yourself, or just really understanding the physical nature of what's happening to you because things are really hot, but you need to do something to relieve that pressure, that valve, so to speak. And then we'll come back. You'll have about 3 minutes or so to discuss, and then we'll have people come back and offer any insights or sharings. Okay, so Vicki, if you wouldn't mind transporting everybody, that'd be great. Welcome back, everybody. I said 3 minutes, but you actually had 5 minutes. I know that still goes by so fast, though. So I want to open it up and invite people to unmute or share in the chat. What is it that you do to stay in that productive zone of not abandoning or having it too low where you're not feeling like you're learning something new, you're experiencing something new? What do you do to stay in that productive zone? Anybody can share.
I would say for me, it's self-care. It's dealing with like a level of stress and then just managing it, with, checking out and taking breaks. So it's being pushed a little past it and taking, stepping back.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, I was trying to scroll through and see who this is. Who is speaking, please?
Yeah, sorry, Jesse from Attain Housing.
Oh, hi, Jesse.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that. The self-care, really, really important. Others want to, 1 or 2 more?
Stephanie, this is Sue Law. One of the things that I do when you get a bunch of stuff to do, or you get in a group and you start getting kind of down because you feel overwhelmed, I just talk to myself. I just have a little talk with myself about, you just got to buck up and keep going and don't give up. So there you go.
That's good. And Sue, can you say just a minute more about the buck up?
Well, you can be in situations where, I talked about being around a bunch of frat boys and jocks, and sometimes it's just annoying, and you think, or you feel under not siege but pressure, and so you tend to pull back, and you don't want to engage. You're just tired of it. And then you have to say, this is what I'm working on. So, just take small steps, or you get a huge list of stuff you have to do and you're overwhelmed. Just start, just do a few things and keep moving. Just don't ever give up. Give yourself a few minutes to be irritated a little. You can whine a little bit with your cheese and then move ahead.
Thank you, Sue. And there's a physical feeling with that. You start to recognize that right away when you're
Absolutely.
in that space, and recognizing that as an opportunity, but then not too much where you disengage. And I love what some folks are adding in the chat as well. Listen, rest with the discomfort. That's fantastic. Go for a walk without my phone. That might be disengaging for a moment, but then coming back. So thank you. Thanks, everybody, for participating. I appreciate that. Let's move on to the results expected for you guys for today. Peyton, if you don't mind changing. So the results for today's meeting are that you have deepened and developed perhaps new relationships and deepen those relationships. That's important in doing this work together. You will have gained a shared understanding and co-developed with us as the backbone on what's needed in this space of deepened the understanding together via these calls with the results in your differentiated work. So we do this by doing this work together, we can expect better outcomes, as I mentioned earlier, better outcomes for children, youth, and families. And so that differentiated work is really, really important in having that opportunity to do that. And you will have identified action commitments that you can take between now and the next call. So that's another really important result for today. You will also have had the opportunity to connect one-on-one, do some networking with others, or have individual conversations. In the 15 minutes after this call, we leave this platform open. We're going to do that again. If you need to have an individual working space and conversation space, Vicki can help you get into an individual group if you need to do that. But know that that platform is available for you to connect. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to my teammates, Sandy, to take it away from here.
Super. Thank you again, Stephanie. For those of you that have been with us on these calls in the last few weeks, you must have seen this slide. We've brought this up a couple of times and have had you reflect on the working agreements and build it with us. I'm not going to be reading this today, but if any of you believe that you wouldn't be able to support any of the working agreements that you see on the slide, please use the raise your hand function to let us know. One thing to keep in mind when you read through these working agreements, if you're doing it for the first time, is the thing with these working agreements is that if you need it to be fully present and participate in the work, please lift it up for the group because it's important. And if you see an agreement that you don't relate to, that you might not necessarily need, that's okay too. What you need to really ask yourself is, somebody in this room needs it, are you able to support them? So I'm going to leave us for 30 seconds before I invite Peyton to move us along. Excellent. With that, I'd like to invite Peyton to walk us through the meeting results guide that you see on your slide here in front of you. This is a list of meeting results that will help us get aligned on what we are hoping to get out of this collaborative work, keeping a focus on a common purpose and orientation to action. With that, Peyton, please take it away from here.
Thanks so much, Sandy, and good morning to everyone today. So we wanted to really take a look at these different types of meeting results for a few reasons. One, thank you to all of you who have filled out the survey, and a little shameless plug, it is going to appear again in the chat box for those who haven't been able to take it. In reading some of the results, we recognize that, there are many different definitions of productivity that we all hold, as well, as specific, practices that we've changed or resources that you've reallocated, to feed into that productivity. And we also recognize that, through the responses, and we've definitely appreciated them, there are, varying ways in which these meetings have been productive or in some ways not productive for each of you. So we wanted to, obviously address that. And we want to remain in the stance of learning in public. And, as we look at the design and the arc of the calls, we want to examine the various meeting results that the Eastside Pathways backbone has designed for. So here on the left side, we have this list of meeting results, and these are meeting results from the results-based facilitation series. And the backbone has been intentional in making sure that we are looking to really check off these boxes because these are iterative pieces of the work. We want to make sure that obviously that we come to solutions and that we are solving problems, but on the way to that, we need to make sure that we are ready to work together, so we understand all the different positionalities that each of us brings to the calls. We've strengthened our relationships, going through the list from information shared all the way through commitments to action made. So each of these meeting results is obviously not, by itself going to solve the problem or, craft all the different solutions that we're looking for. But together, taking all these meeting results together will bring us closer to the solution. So we have each of these meeting results, and they also exist on a gradient. So low, medium, and high impact. The low impact would just be the acknowledgement without any action. So take, for instance, the fourth meeting result here, which would be ideas generated. The low impact part of that might be we listed new ideas, and that's all that we did. The medium impact, which might be discussing about moving to action for that, might be identifying exactly which new ideas that we want to explore in service of the work that we're doing together. And then you have high impact, which is really committed actions with clear benefit to move the work. And that might be, prioritizing these new ideas, and using agreed upon criteria to work through these new ideas towards solutions. And I want to make sure that we understand that each of these results that we see here is the result of a meeting. Not every meeting we come to is going to completely solve our final problem. I liken it to every time you go into a car dealership, you're not coming out with a new car. You might be going in there to look at the financing, to see how the agents are, to see what colors look like in person, to see the car dealership, or to just go comparison shopping. Each of those things is in service, ideally, I would imagine, of purchasing a new car, but not each of those things is not purchasing a new car. So put together, those are going to work towards the final solution here. So this is, again, just a recognition of the fact that all of these results are really different and very, very purposeful and intentional ways that Eastside Pathways has designed the meeting to move us forward. On the lower right-hand corner, we see, again, our reliable friend, the performance measure 2x2 grid, and we've highlighted the how well. Each of these meeting results, many of them are, really qualitative factors indicating how well you are doing towards moving towards your overall goal. And again, the overall goal that the Backbone is holding for us all is having 100% of East King County residents with the support to get through what we're going through right now. And each of these results is looking at how well we are doing that, how well we are making decisions, resolving conflict, strengthening our accountability as we move forward. And, Sandy and Kalika have done an amazing job over these past few weeks to design meetings and lead us through these results. So again, it's really a reminder that, because we got on the call and we left the call and we didn't solve all of the problems, a lot of these iterative meeting results have been achieved to move us forward. So I am going to actually pass it to Sandy, who's going to lead you in just kind of a little bit of a reflection.
Super. Thanks, Peyton, for that. Like you said, Peyton, the intention of this exercise is to be aligned in your respective focus groups on the results that lead to action. The link to the meeting results is in the chat now. You will have access to it when you go into breakouts. Before you go into breakouts, I'd like you to take about 30 seconds to reflect on how do you measure productivity for yourself? Great. So I hope that you took this time to jot down something which would speak to how you measure productivity for yourself. And then in your respective focus groups, what we would like you to do today is look at the list of meeting results that Peyton walked you through and prioritize 3 top results from that list to move the work in your area. So really think about, I know that when you look at the list, a lot of it might make sense for your focus area, but really as a collective, you will spend, we encourage you to spend 15 minutes to really align on 3 results that you can prioritize that you'd like to move for your focus group. With that, Wiki will now be moving you into your respective groups. Like I said, you will have 15 minutes to discuss, and then when we come back, we will request you to add your top 3 results to the chat. I wanted to say that I hope that my instructions when you went into your breakouts were clear enough, and I apologize if it was not, but there is a lot of value in the work that each of you did in your groups. If you thought about, if you really shared and found alignment in thinking about the top 3 priorities as meeting results that you're hoping to drive in your group. Now, I would really encourage you to look at the PDF that Peyton has shared on your screen to really think about how does your discussion map to the list of meeting results that you see on the screen. Stephanie had the opportunity to be in one of the rooms, just play the role of an observer. Stephanie, can I bring you in to share the reflection that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody from I think it was the health and well-being group, and I apologize, I think right as I was getting ready to speak, I got transported. But I will offer just one thing that I heard, and feel free to chime in as well. I heard the group talking about how difficult it is to develop relationships and deepen relationships, especially when we're isolated and virtual through this virtual platform. It's really difficult. And so what I might offer when looking at the types of meeting results, because again, the work that we're doing is how we're the system, how are we changing the system? How are we changing how we're working together? What I might offer based on what I heard was relationships strengthened would be one of the meeting results. And so that's helpful for us as a backbone to know, because then we have to make sure that we're designing spaces here, especially virtually, that allow for those relationships to be built and strengthened when we're not face to face. So that might be one of the meeting results that you guys would like to see from the backbone.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephanie. With that, I'd like to say, as the backbone is convening and bringing you all together, you showing up in these meetings is productive. Building new connections, having these conversations and providing feedback, all of this is productive. And to Stephanie's point, that is what shifts the way that these systems are working together in mutually reinforcing ways. So that is a meeting result that we hold ourselves accountable to as we design these spaces and bring all of you together. With that, I'd like to invite each of the groups that we have to please add your 3 top results in the chat. So just name your focus group and please list out the 3 meeting results that you found alignment in your respective groups. Is there anybody that would like to unmute and speak to the experience of engaging with your group and really thinking about what you are trying to drive as a collective?
Hi, Sandy, it's Tammy. I was in the food group, and as I'm looking at the guide, I can tell you that number 2, which is the relationship strengthened, was very evident within the first seconds of getting into our breakout group when you saw huge smiles on everyone's face. And it meant that we trusted each other. we talked about the results that we have seen so far due to our relationship. And we had more of a celebration of the things that are going right, for letting people know about food in Bellevue, in the community.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Tammy. Can you also speak to the results that you're holding the team accountable to working towards? When you look at this guide, when you look at this list, did you speak about results that you're driving action towards?
Meals, people eating food, just getting the food and knowing where the food is. Flyers getting out into the community, flyers about food resources and resources, getting out into the community through each other. Helena was saying that she received emails about the Bellevue Firefighters Cares and getting the flyers out through them. And they met together and said, hey, let's get these flyers out there. So she went into action and got them out there for folks.
Excellent, Tammy. And when I look at the list, I'm looking at strategy and action plan developed. So you just modeled that. You just spoke about how there's a need and how you together as a group came up with an action plan in order to reach the need. Thank you so much, Tammy. I'd like to make space for somebody else. Thank you for starting to add your results to the chat. I'd invite all the groups to do so. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? What are the results that you spoke about in your group? Somebody from funding?
Hi, this is Liz from the funding group.
Hey, Liz.
We got a little tiny bit confused about should we be answering the question on productivity, and then we remembered about this chart and we pulled it up, and we kind of more so looked at whether we thought we were at a low, medium, or high impact on some of these things. And we thought the first few of them were kind of, easier in a lot of ways. Some trust, getting to work together, let's see, relationships and so on. And we thought a couple weeks ago, we started to make a little traction on some actual ideas. One of them was principles in grant making that increase equity for grassroots organizations, models like Bellevue Essentials to increase diversity on boards and commissions. So we kind of thought we were low on generating ideas and kind of getting action commitments. And I hope the rest of the group will fill in what I've forgotten.
Thank you, Liz. I would need to move us along, but would encourage all the groups to please add your summary and the 3 top priorities, 3 top meeting results to the chat. Also know that this PDF will be available in your follow-up email, so you can reflect on where you're at and where you're headed in your respective groups. With that, Peyton, can I please request you to move us along to the next slide? Thank you. Many of you have seen this Equitable Results Series fish scale before. I bring this up so we can get centered on where we are at. I say that, and it's also important to note here that each of the groups might be at different points on the scale, and that's completely fine. Today, what we are offering to you is another tool in your toolkit, which is the small test of change. So if your focus group has developed a result statement in your focus group, many of you developed a result statement for the universal population and then for your specific focus population. You also conducted factor analysis and validation, which helped you prioritize the factors that you will be building strategies for. Today, what we are inviting you to do in your respective groups is to really think about a small test of change. A small test of change really can be in your own sphere of influence. So at your workplace, it could be a subset within your focus group, or it can be something that can be done with the entire group. Just keep in mind that it's carried out in a short period of time. What you're really thinking about is, you know, the barriers that you're solving for. You might have a hypothesis or a theory for what might work. The question really is, who can you test it with? Who can validate your strategy for you before you kind of roll it out in a big, large way with the larger audience? So that is what we are hoping to do in our focus group today, is to really go into our focus groups, think about where you're at. Peyton, can we please move to the next slide? Think about where you're at. And in your groups, you wouldn't have the backbone play the role of a facilitator, because really each of you is the expert at doing the work that you do in your lanes. We have designed the space for you to take the lead, lean in on the power of your group to drive the differentiated work. So what we will be doing is, today the backbone will be playing the role of an observer. We will be going and rotating in between the different groups and really listening to the discussions that you're having, and be available for any sort of support that you might need. I would like you to reflect on, do you know the root cause of the factors that you're trying to solve for? What might you do differently from what you have learned from your audience? What might you try? Where and with whom might you run this small test of change? What do you need? What sort of resources? The authority, the time. We heard about the difficulty in building relationships in the virtual space. Think about, who are your allies? Who are you taking with you? Whose support you know you have as you run the test of change? And what might opposition look like? Again, you'll have about 20 minutes in your breakout. You will not have a backbone facilitating and taking notes for you. So I'd like to encourage one of you or a couple of you to really step up and take notes for the group. I would also like to invite one person to summarize for the discussion that you've had. I want to say here again, each group might be at a different point, and that's completely fine. We are just looking at you, reflecting on where you're at and what might running a small test of change look like. Before we move you into your breakouts, Stephanie, would you want to add anything that I might have missed, so to make sure that the groups have what they need as they move into their small groups?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, I just, again, want to emphasize, I know some groups might still be trying to solidify that problem statement, then work on that. At the same time, think about where you might be able to do some sort of small test of change on that problem statement, for example, whether that's in your organization with another partner. So just to continue the idea is to move the work forward with each other. Mm-hmm. So that's all I just wanted to add. Thank you.
Super. Thanks, Stephanie. So with that, Wiki will be moving you into your breakouts. You'll have about 20 minutes to work in your group. Think about, again, what's the root cause? What might you do differently? And who might you test your hypotheses or your theory with? Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you all had a good breakout. We'll give Peyton a couple of seconds to pull up the deck. I'd like to invite one person from each focus group to just summarize the discussion that you had for your group. Can we start with mental health and well-being, please? One volunteer from mental health and well-being. I had the opportunity to participate and listen to the amazing discussion that you all were having.
This is Anu, and I can mention what we talked about. We feel that we need more time and to get the group together, and so there are and discuss a bit more with the entire group present. And Becky and Kathy are putting a list of resources together. They're reaching out to different organizations and putting a list of resources together as to what is there to help with that. And that's where we are. And I'll let Becky chime in more on that.
Yeah, I think we need a little more time. We've had some, I think, trouble with people's availability on Thursday, so it's been hard to get everyone together. So having that time will be great. And then I think we're just trying to figure out, we're finding that the health and well-being resources are tapped. And so how do we help organizations have more relief valves from others in the group? So we would love to have, people, I think, from more organizations join our group so we can have a little bit more input about what the needs are. Some of what we're noticing is that before COVID, loneliness and isolation was an issue. Now that's a huge issue. So it's hard to get at those populations with the needs. So any more collaboration or involvement, or if people want to reach out to me with what your organization is doing or the needs that your populations have, we would be open to that.
Thank you so much, Becky and Anu, and thank you, Becky and Kathy, for taking the action commitment to put together a resource pool of what is available and the groups that might be getting missed. I'd like to invite somebody from the food group to give us a summary.
Hi, I'm Tammy, and I basically just copied off the questions, and we went through the questions. Mm-hmm. Thinking about what our problem statement is, being populations in our community not able to access food. And what we started to look at was asking the 5 whys. Ask why. Why aren't the populations able to get food? And we formed some hypotheses. We had some questions about it, that it had to do with translation or cultural understandings and not really understanding the populations. Then we went into looking at how to look at the systems that are in place right now that are can be changed in what way. And we came up with how the budget schedules and the funding schedules are affecting our abilities. And these are things that are set. For example, Lindsay was talking about, we can't access funding until late year, but that is not a very flexible program. So we needed to think about who are the stakeholders in it, who are the stakeholders in our funding structures, and maybe asking them some questions. What would flexibility and funding look like? And start to address it in that way.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing from food. Can I call on somebody from funding?
Okay, I feel like I'm talking a lot today. This is Liz from the funding group. We talked a little bit about the root cause, perhaps really being that human services aren't valued. They've often been seen as a charity or a hand up for hardworking, deserving people and not a right. One of the things that we talked about was some of the great work that the Human Services Assembly Group has done on reframing it and talking about supports and people weathering life storms and so on. So I'm going to get that out to our group. We talked about some of the things that we might do differently, would be some of the reframing. We talked about how it would be good if we had more folks in the funding group who were actual funders to help kind of inform and be allies for our work. And I hope the rest of the funding group will chime in if there's something I missed.
Yeah, this is Sue. This is Sue Baugh, and I just to add to that, we talked about the idea of maybe looking at getting some help to create a marketing campaign to reframe the whole idea of human services, not necessarily as charity, but as a first step in building an effective community. It's a hand up, not a hand out.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely will need some marketing help to help us get that point across.
Thank you, Sue and Liz. Our last group today, remote living and learning. Can I have one of you summarizing for us?
So those of us who talk a lot in our breakout sessions are very reluctant to keep talking. So if anybody else would like to report out, please jump in. Okay then. I'm sorry, I don't like to dominate the conversation. Those of us who are talking a lot really don't want to dominate the conversation. I think that opportunity is the one thing that well, we discuss the most, and lack of access to opportunity before the pandemic has of course only been exacerbated by our current situation. And so the connection to students, especially students we have not yet heard from, is one of the most vital things that we need to be working on. And fortunately, Gloria is on our remote learning team, and she was able to give us insight as to what is currently being done to connect with students and to connect with families and parents. And some of that is being done remote with Teams meetings, so that there's, in real time interaction with families. And it sounds like Los Padres Unidos is also helping Gloria in the Redmond High School area in particular, communicating with families and letting them know you can come to this, click this link, some support with the technology. We need to be able to replicate that for so many groups of families and students, and find those leaders in their communities so that we have the trusted person that is that inner contact.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you guys fill in what I've left out.
Thank you, Cassandra. All right, hearing all the summary, I'm looking at the meeting results guide that Peyton had presented earlier, and I'm hearing so much of what you shared being mapped to the meeting results. I heard relationships strengthened, information shared, ideas generated on how we can move the work as a collective, strategy and action plan being developed, accountability strengthened. I heard Becky and Kathy say we are continuing to work on our action commitments. And Tammy also spoke about taking a moment to really celebrate the progress that has been made. So progress recognized, and continuing to be committed to our action commitments. So thank you so much, each of you, for being here, believing in the strength of moving this work as all these systems working together. With that, Peyton, can I please request you to move to the next slide? This is a quote from Wayne Dyer. For those of you who know him, he's believed to be the father of motivation and known for his work in the fields of self-development and spiritual growth. This is the way that I'm interpreting his words today to connect it to where we are in this group. What we are trying to do is to really sit in the disequilibrium, to stay productive and being willing to challenge ourselves to look at things differently, shifting our vision, shifting our vision and what we are trying to do, being willing to see things that you might have missed, being willing to learn in public and connect with the people that you might not have yet. So really, again, thank you for engaging with us in the way that you do, being willing to be challenged and learning as a group, and as we can, and learning in a way that we center race and effective community engagement. Just a reminder that you will have 15 minutes right after this call where Wiki will be holding space, unstructured space for you to connect. And if you need to be moved into breakout room, she'd be willing to do that as well. So thank you so much for being here. We will see you again next Tuesday, and a lot of the material that we shared today will be available in the follow-up email. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you.